Welcome back to another episode of Strong Conversations. We're inside the studio here at the Simpson Strong Tie booth in beautiful Las Vegas at the NAHB International Builder Show. I am Sam Marcoux, as always. And with me on this episode is Mr. Darren Rohan. Darren, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for letting me come today.
No, thank you for being here. So for those that don't know Darren, they're going to get to know you here. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I work for CBC Framing in Northern California. I'm currently the general manager, and I do day-to-day operations and sales.
Yeah, so Darren's putting it a little bit mildly here. So Darren, in my opinion, because you live in Northern California,
That
just
is
like
correct.
I do, you are so connected with everyone in our industry. And every time I think I have found out something, somebody has left and gone over here or something new is happening, it turns out it's old news for you. You are just so connected. How are you so connected with the building industry?
I believe it was when I first started in the industry. My friend at the time who what ended up being my boss was a guy called Brian George, who pushed me into the BIA Northern California. And a lady called Sue Kirkish, she invited me into the BIA, which had a lot of people that I still connect with today that are builders or subcontractors that I still have a great rapport with.
And it makes sense. I mean, you're involved, right? You're involved in the industry associations. That is an area where everyone kind of comes together, very similar to the International Builder Show here. But are you actively going out and getting information about whatever, or is it something that people call you and say, "Hey, just so you know, this is what's going on"? How is that? How are you getting that information?
Well, I believe you need to be involved in your industry. So to be involved, you have to care about it and love it.
Yeah.
So most of the people I deal with on a day-to-day basis aren't customers or clients. They're my friends.
Right.
So every day it's a conversation with your friend, not a conversation about who's moving. You're not in sales. You're actively involved in their life. So to me, it's just passing on information as you would your wife or your brother or sister. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing. I think that's partly to do with it, and to treat everybody how you'd be treated.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And like you said, I love that way you phrase that. You are taking an active role in your friends' lives. You guys just happen to be working in the same industry, adjacent with each other, can partner up from time to time. How long have you been doing this job now? How long have you been in the industry? Let me start there.
Well, in America, since 96, but I grew up in construction. So since 96 and then 98 with the Northern California BIA and everything that goes with it. So 27 years.
So you started down in Southern California?
No, I started in Papua New Guinea and then Australia and then came across, but since then in Northern California mainly.
Yeah. Oh, I just meant, sorry, when you came to the States, it was Southern California before moving up.
No, always been Northern California.
Always been Northern California.
Yeah, my
Okay.
wife's from Southern California, but Northern California.
How did you make your way to the States?
A plane.
Well, what model plane, Darren?
It was actually, believe it or not, 747.
Oh, you actually know the plane.
My wife's a pilot.
Oh, really?
So, yes, you've got to know pretty much what planes they are, even though sometimes I forget.
Wow. Well, I mean, it was kind of like called my bluff on that. I was going to go, I'm going to jump on top of your joke. Was it because you met your wife? Is she from the States?
Yes, she is.
Yeah. And that's why you came to the States? Is that?
Yes, to see if we would actually make it. And we'd lived overseas a long time, and we decided we'd actually come to America.
Right on. So, Northern California, I won't give out your exact address. I'll just give the coordinates of your home. But no, you live in a wonderful area. I'm not going to mention it unless you want to, but
I moved to Santa Cruz recently from Oakland, lived in Oakland for Berkeley. I've lived in Monterey, but a majority of the time in Oakland. Love my experiences there.
Yeah.
And we found our little niche was Santa Cruz, and we have actually moved down to Santa Cruz, and a couple of days a week I have to live in the Bay Area. But yes, we are in a lovely part of California.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. back when I was a territory manager for Simpson, that was part of my territory. It was Santa Cruz, Monterey, that whole area, and it's just you get away from the Bay Area and the craziness of that metropolis, and it slows down a little bit, but it's breathtaking. The views. I mean, there's good golf. I know you golf from time to time. It's just there's so much to do there. It's a great place to live.
And the community
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Like you find everybody finds their community, and that's why they tend to live there or enjoy that area.
Yeah.
My wife and I found our community.
So you said you grew up in construction. Are you like a second generation? Anybody in your family, or did it just something that you're always around, or what does
My
that mean?
dad's 81, turning 82 shortly, still has 50 guys working for him in construction. So we've, ever since I've been a young kid, I've had to, I've learnt my trade.
Put on the bags and
Yep.
start putting nails in. So not everybody really fully understands, I think, what a framer does, right? And what the framing side of our business does. And I'd love for you to kind of just go through what it is, because it is more than just pounding nails, is it not?
It is. A framer is, somebody put it to me saying that the reason they wouldn't give me the job was because a framer is my quarterback. They're the ones that make it happen. Everybody around the team drives from the quarterback. So the framer comes on and typically value engineers the house, finds out if there's any problems in the house, corrects them hopefully prior to actually framing the house. But then as they go along, they're working with the mechanical subcontractor, the plumber. Probably the concrete is the only one really that they don't involve other than the hold downs. But from there, they pretty much work with every trade, including the stucco contractor, because your cabinet guy needs blocks. Everybody you think of in a house that needs to attach something to wood, a framer had to put it there.
You know, it's interesting you say it that way in terms of being the quarterback, because you think of a quarterback on a football team, they're the ones leading that huddle, right? Everyone has their role, the wide receivers, the tight end, whoever. But the quarterback's the one that's putting the playbook, or not putting the playbook together, but calling the plays and saying, okay, everybody's got to do this. They have to be responsible. They're the only one in that team that's got to know what everybody else is doing. And like you said, you have to not only communicate with the builder, but you got to communicate with all those other subcontractors. You got to communicate with the jurisdictions in the cities. You got to communicate with suppliers. You got to communicate with just about everyone. Very much a linchpin in the whole build process. And I think that sometimes goes underappreciated when you think of framers, because we tend to boil things down and go, well, they're the ones who put the sticks in the air and then they move on with their lives. There's a lot that goes into it, right? And if there isn't that coordination, that's when you might see something happen that stops the entire process and progress of that job site, right?
Yeah, we have issues time to time, but on most cases it flows pretty quickly. The framer is done before the plumber and mechanical. Everybody wants the house to go faster and faster and faster, reduce their reduce their lead times on the job. They were trying to get it from 90 to 60 days. You know, everybody wants a quicker house for return on investment. But at the end of the day, most people can't keep up with the framers. Framers will outframe, then the plumbers can actually plumb a house, or a mechanical or electrician. So, you know, the framers do a hell of a lot on a day-to-day basis. It's I wasn't a framer by trade. I came into the role. A lot of people, superintendents I meet all the time, say, I was a framer. I have worked for John for 7 years. I will never say I was a framer, based on the fact that my guys are that good. They're framers. They actually understand something. It's like a computer programmer doing code. They look at a set of plans and they read code differently, and they put a house together quickly with all the structural. As you know, there is so much in structure today with all the straps, the screws, the nails. There's a lot involved in it. Hardware is a huge part of the business today.
Well, and you know, we're talking at this point the actual construction of the house, but there's also kind of the back end stuff of managing the business and running the business and coordination. Because I mean, you got multiple jobs going, right? You got crews going in one city or that city. You have to make sure that they're fully staffed, that they're there on the right time, that your product is going to be there at the right time. So again, going back to that communication piece of being that quarterback and making sure that you've got everything lined up so that you don't have any hiccups or as little as you could possibly have. I mean, there's a lot, not just like you said, from the framing outfit, putting everything together and keeping up with them, but sort of around it, that whole surround of just the business itself. There's a ton that goes into it.
Yeah, even flow is a hard thing to get. And as you said, you're on multiple jobs, and my guys in the field do very well juggling that every day.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that, which is fortunate, but I field the calls when it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just listening to a person vent because they don't care about the community beside them, which is probably two communities of the same builder. They don't care. They're only concerned about their community.
Right.
And some days, you don't like picking which children you're going to save, but you can only do so much
Right.
every day for each individual.
100%. Where are you seeing the? So we're late February right now as we sit down and talk about this. Where are you seeing your slice of the pie right now? Northern California, California in general, residential construction. I mean, how has 2025 started off? Just in general. I mean, you don't have to necessarily get into the specifics of your business, but overall, how are you feeling?
There's a lot of model complexes getting constructed in some areas, but overall, the industry ran out of lots in Northern California, in the Bay Area. Sacramento's a different entity again,
Yeah.
but I'm just talking the Bay Area and out to Central Valley. A lot of the builders are behind on their entitlements, or their offsites or their land development. All are going through different stages. So we see a big, strong push to the end of 2025 picking up. There's a lot of model complexes going in, but come September, I believe we'll be under full steam with with a lot more production in Northern California.
It does feel that way. I happen to agree with you. I think we're kind of on the tail end of sort of this flat, plane, if you will. But there's a lot of indicators that make you think like, hey, we need to be ready. So knowing that or having that feeling or whatever the analytics are telling you later this year, we got to be ready. What does that do for you and your business? I mean, how do you guys get ready for that?
Well, we try to pick up work now, but you still got to remember the economy right now is a crapshoot since you're in Vegas.
Right.
But you've got people getting unemployed, so you're going to have a high unemployment rate. And with the high unemployment, you've got to lower interest rates because you don't want the economy crashing. So lowering interest rates could kick it off,
Right.
could not kick it off. You don't know where it sits at the moment. So I think it is like they just said today that home building is on a downturn at the moment. So I don't think it's the case in Northern California yet. I think because we didn't have the lots available, you don't see that.
Right.
I think insurance is going to come into play with the fires in Southern California. There's so many different variables that we're unsure of. All we're hoping is for the next 6 months, have enough work to keep the boys busy. And we will see. And 6 months in a framing world goes by really quickly. Yeah. So you're in it for the year, not in it for a couple of months.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of that longer vision, right? The marathon mentality, even if you're running at a sprinter's pace. It kind of feels like you almost have to do both sides of that. So we're on day one. What are you most excited about for the International Builder Show? When you come to a show like this, what's the number one box to check for you?
My number one box is getting networking, seeing old acquaintances. You run into so many friends that you haven't seen because either they moved away or they've taken another role that you don't actually get to see them.
Yeah.
And it is, even though it's a large area, you sort of run into people at various times of the day or night.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like really excited about seeing that.
Yeah.
I just got here today, so walking around, all the booths are a lot bigger. They're getting taller every year. There's more product in there. And there's a lot of people here. There's a great buzz around. Everybody seems excited, so it's a good energy.
There does. I mean, we're in the studio right now. There's a little bit of a fishbowl effect. You can see out. I mean, we're in the Simpson Strong Tie booth, but you can see. I mean, there's just so many people at all these little different stations, and it's that way throughout the entire trade show, at least for where we are in the Central Hall. And you're right. I think a buzz is the right word to use, because there's an energy there, and it's almost like it's contained to the hive. But again, later this year, not just in Northern California, I do think you'll see other areas of the country start to come back, right, and start to go do that upward trajectory there. So it's kind of fun to have this almost as a kickoff event to, like, all right, stay the course, get yourself prepared, and it's going to be there. And you got to be ready, you got to be prepared once it's there.
Well, I'm not sure how long you've been in the industry overall, but you got to remember that IBS was 1 year in Las Vegas,
Yep.
1 year in Orlando, and it all rotated every year.
Yep.
So, but in Northern California, we had PCBC.
Right.
So it was the biggest show. It was as big as this, more people. Everybody loved coming into San Francisco back in the day. And then over the time of the recession, they sort of split it with Southern California.
Yeah.
And IBIS stopped going to Orlando. And now I believe this is the key place that everybody comes to and puts on their calendar. And this is their one time a year to see new products and, again, get a weekend, a couple of days in Las Vegas too, and get entertained and enjoy themselves.
Well, I think that that leads me to my last question, probably the most important question, Darren. We are in Las Vegas, as you pointed out. There happens to be some gambling that can happen here. There's casino games. There's, poker games. If you could win $1 million, you had a chance to win $1 million, you could play one casino game for a chance to win $1 million. What game are you playing and why?
How much am I putting down to start with?
This is the thinking man's framer, ladies and gentlemen, even though he won't call himself a framer. I know you're not much of a gambler, right?
So that's what I'm thinking about. I could actually pick that money up, put it in my pocket, and I'm a little bit richer than I was yesterday.
The man that doesn't gamble, Mr. Darren Rohan. I don't know. I feel like you would take a chance on like a roulette table. I think you could go up and just put something on black or red and just kind of see what happens.
I can do that. I just don't see the value in it. It's got to be a value bet. I grew up, my father was a bookie.
Yep.
And even though he had a construction company, he still had a bookmaking shop with racehorses all our lives.
Yep.
And I bet on the horses, but you got to have a value bet. It's got to be something of value, whereas red and black is just luck.
You are the second person to sit down today who had a father as a bookie that has at least admitted to it. I'm sure there's a couple other ones out there as well, but that's kind of fascinating. Maybe that's how we'll chop all this up. We'll have the sons of bookies, part of the IBS podcast. But you're right. So you're not going on pure chance. You want to have some sort of value, some skin in the game that makes some sense. All right. Well, I'm going to say that's a non-answer, Darren, but that's all right. We're going to let that go because you made up for with that very logical, I got here on a plane answer from earlier. So,
how'd you get here?
I just woke up, man. I just woke up and I was in the studio. That's all I know. I slept right there. It was a futon. I'm not allowed to leave, but anything else you want to talk about before I let you go and start making that network and connections?
No. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah, they're pretty much, we're trying to keep it clean. So, I can't harass the Simpson staff.
You got to say, for those that know Darren, because a lot of people that are watching this right now, it feels like you are focused and really, really respecting the fact that we are sitting here with microphones in front of us.
Hopefully there wasn't a hot mic earlier on, or, we're going to be in trouble. The only thing I can actually say is there should be a beer in front of you. Generally, a lot of talk shows, they have drinks and beers to loosen the conversation up. That's the reason these are podcasts and not like, comedy shows or late night specials.
Yeah. We're learning. It's a learning process, right? So perhaps next year or maybe tomorrow, you come back tomorrow, we'll do it again. Maybe there'll be a change. Who knows? But Darren, thank you very much for being here on the show. Thank you all for listening and consuming the content that is the Strong Conversations podcast. Stay tuned. We got more excellent content coming very, very soon.